Top 5 insanely dedicated scientists. In pursuit of scientific knowledge and discovery, there will always be those who step out over and beyond the call of duty. Here's a list of 5 who completely launched themselves beyond the call of duty on a motorbike made of science and insanity. Number 5. At 5, John Scott Haldane and John B.S. Haldane, a British physiologist with an admirable amount of dedication to make up for his apparent lack of self-preservation instinct. John Scott Haldane was widely known for his expert knowledge of the respiratory system, along with his intrepid self-experimenting, namely sealing himself within an airtight chamber and subjecting himself to lethal cocktails of gases while recording their effects on his mind and body. His son, John B.S. Haldane, followed in his father's footsteps, depriving himself of oxygen long enough to trigger a damaging fit and inflicting upon himself perforated eardrums. John Scott's experiments lead to a vast array of discoveries relating to the workings of the human body, the nature of gases, and the often unpleasant intersection between the two. Number 4. Werner Forsman at number 4 had theorized that certain drugs could be delivered more effectively into the bloodstream if they were administered directly into the heart. This was the basic principle behind what would become his revolutionary procedure, cardiac catheterization. In order to test this procedure, he enlisted a nurse to help him, who agreed on the condition that he would perform the operation on her instead of himself. So he secured her on the operating table and then went ahead and performed the operation on himself anyway, presumably screaming, "It's too dangerous." While under the influence of local anesthetic, he went ahead and threaded a uretic catheter into his vein and then straight into his heart. Number 3. Coming in at number 3, Dr. Barry Marshall. Along with his partner Dr. Robin Warren, Marshall was studying the bacteria H. pylori when he became convinced of a connection between the bacteria and afflictions such as peptic ulcers and gastric cancer. Faced with ridicule from established scientists and doctors, it stands to reason that Marshall would respond by doing the least ridiculous thing he could think of. But his actual response was to scull an entire petri dish filled with bacteria. After 3 days, he developed nausea and halitosis. After 5, he had progressed to vomiting, and by the 8th day, he had demonstrated that his own body had become a living bacteria farm, significantly advancing contemporary medical knowledge and proving his opponents wrong in the craziest and most awesome way possible. Number 2. A French husband-wife duo with a keen interest in radiation, Pierre and Marie Curie are on number 2, who literally defined the term radioactivity. In an effort to test how the strange activity which they subjected could be harmful to humans affected skin, the pair settled on a method for investigating. Pierre strapped raw radium to his bare arm, spitting in the eyes of such concepts as safety or healthy caution. After several days, his arm became red and inflamed. The longer it stayed on, the more painful and grievous the wounds became. This apparently just made the pair angry as they continued experimenting for several months, eventually gaining great knowledge of radiation burn, along with various changes in their hands during researches. Number 1. Number 1 on this list is Stubbins Firth. In an effort to prove that yellow fever isn't contagious, note that it is, Firth transcended the boundaries of hygiene, common decency and sanity itself. He made incisions in his arms and then filled them with vomit from yellow fever patients or just poured it directly onto his eyeballs. He then moved on to blood, saliva and urine just in case anybody wasn't already disgusted enough. In the end, his work was all for nothing. The samples he had obtained had come from patients who were past the point of being contagious, which we imagine would be pretty devastating to discover after spending months swallowing vomit.